Hello and good day. My name is John Tarleton. I'm the head of weather marketing for the Americas and Digital Solutions at Vizsla, and also a road weather meteorologist. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the impacts of winter weather and why it's so important to really understand why those impacts are different than we would see in a traditional weather event. Meteorologists, when we think of weather and its impacts, we typically think worse is going to be much more of an impact. The more snow you get, the more that's going to impact the more wind, the more rain. And in many cases, that does work out pretty well. And meteorologists like to think that way as we think in terms of measurements and measuring things. So typically, more rain equals more flooding, more heat equals a larger drought. All those kind of things typically go into an extreme weather factors. However, in road weather, it doesn't quite work that way. In actuality, variability is a bigger cause of problems that we have to worry about. If when the road conditions are not uniform as someone commutes to work in the morning or the evening, that has a chance. And we'll go through some of those instances of what those might be here in a little bit. Also, conditions that provide less grip or friction are worse. And those not necessarily occur with larger snow or ice accumulations. In many cases, they actually occur when there's little or no or minor amounts of accumulation. So it's not necessarily the heavy amounts that cause our biggest problems. And then also, tied to those worse events, we get, of course, media coverage. They warn our motorists when they're traveling about the community, and so therefore they typically do a fairly good and substantial job when we have major winter storms or major weather impacting our area. But little storms, freezing drizzle of that sort doesn't typically get that much coverage in the media, and so therefore our drivers are not well informed when they head out in the morning or evening as far as how they're going to address that. So let's think a little bit about how that, especially if you're in winter maintenance, how that would affect something like you and why it's important for you to think through those factors. Let's think a little bit about which is worse. Which would you rather have? 6 inches of snow on a Saturday morning or an inch of snow on a Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning? Well, of course, we would all say if you're in winter maintenance, you would know that the Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. at 1 inch is much worse because it's going to come at that inopportune time, right there at morning rush hour, versus 6 inches on a Saturday morning when your travel is less, you have much less vehicles on the road, less people in a hurry, so the demand of the driver is much less. So it's a lot easier for them to handle those kind of outcomes. Let's try another one. Which is worse, moderate freezing rain at 31 degrees or basically 0.5 degrees Celsius, or a trace of freezing rain at 27 degrees? Again, not too hard to think this through, but of course it is the trace of freezing drizzle at 27 degrees or -2 Celsius that is much worse because it's colder. At 31 degrees, yes, water will freeze below 32 or 0 degrees Celsius, but it doesn't freeze very quickly. And even occasional traffic can keep the rain from freezing to a very hard and slippery value or level. Where when we're at a much colder temperature, it freezes quicker. We need less traffic. We would need more traffic to keep it from freezing or more chemicals. So therefore, that is one of the things we must take into consideration when we do that. So what I want you to do is always focus on the impact of the road. Think about the timing. When does that storm approaching you? Is it during those peak travel times, or it is on a Saturday or a holiday or a time when you don't have travel? And you think about that already today when you're doing road maintenance. The amount of snow. Again, higher amounts of snow. Always remember that precipitation never falls uniformly across an area. Your community, your city, your entire state or region. It will not fall uniformly, even across small areas. And that's true of rain or snow. When we have very little snow accumulation, say under an inch or so, we're going to see that variability because in some areas we might get very little accumulation on the road. In other areas we might get that full inch to 2 centimeters of actual accumulation. So that's what the driver is going to have to respond to. When we're talking about a major winter storm, we have a huge amount of snow, there's still that variability, but now it no longer matters because everywhere there's snow accumulation. So the roads look more uniformly. Drivers are able to adapt throughout their entire commute or their entire trip. It is more uniform, and that is uniformity is that problem. Resolve with a traveler. We can never take out of consideration that travelers are always going to do what they need to do when they want to do it. We can warn them, we can do our best to do that, but when there's a lot of things pressing for them to do, they're going to still do that travel in most cases, or at least try the best of their ability. Another one I've heard around the world is the first event of the season. Most people almost forget how to drive in winter. You've heard that before, I'm sure, in your region. It's a common thing, and you have to take that in consideration that first event of the year will be a problem because it will cause issues with people as they drive. And then how much media hype is going around the storm or not. If there's a lot of media hype, you know your travelers will be more informed about the weather. If there's less, in other words, if maybe it was even a surprise event that came in that morning, expect more accidents because more people and more crashes because people will be not expecting those conditions on their drive in. They didn't expect, they didn't make extra time, and now they're having to deal with it. And finally, again, don't be tempted to react based on the media, meteorologists like myself, or the public. Remember, they don't truly understand what sometimes that impact to road is. They're naturally thinking a major blizzard or a major winter storm is going to cause the most problems. And yes, it's going to require a lot of snow removal. It's going to take out some services for some time. But in general, your crashes, fatalities, accidents, those are all going to be less in a major winter storm than you will have in a light accumulation or a light event. So remember to think about those kind of impacts as you approach a storm and get that out to the public and get that out to your traveling public. Underreacting and overreacting costs money too. I mean, it's important to remember that. Lately, we've been on a push to really get ourselves into reacting at the appropriate level, but we also got to remember that overreacting costs money as well. By shutting down businesses and services when there isn't that need to do so, that costs us money. So we were trying to find that sweet spot between underreacting and overreacting. And we need to make sure that we've learned that from each event and how we handle that. And so that's again a little tips we want to talk about today as far as how you can use winter maintenance, use your weather forecast to help you do an excellent job. Thank you for listening.